I am 70 years old now and my hands shake when the mornings are cold. I notice it most when I'm trying to light the stove, the match trembling like it's afraid of the flame. That morning, the morning everything changed, I remember thinking that my hands looked older than the rest of me. Veins like thin blue strings, skin loose, spotted, tired. Hands that had held babies, buried a husband, scrubbed floors, and learned how to survive on almost nothing. I didn't know yet that by nightfall, those same hands would belong to 6 children. I was standing in my kitchen, if you could call it that. A single room with peeling yellow paint, a window that refused to close all the way, and a table with one leg shorter than the others. Outside, the wind pushed trash along the cracked sidewalk like it had somewhere important to be. The radio was on low, humming an old gospel tune, the kind my Harold used to like. I kept it on even after he died because silence made the house feel too honest. I was measuring flour with a chipped cup when I heard the knock. It wasn't a polite knock. It wasn't confident. It was the sound of someone who didn't want to be heard but needed to be anyway. 3 soft taps, then a pause, then 2 more, like a question. I wiped my hands on my apron and went to the door, already tired for reasons I couldn't name. When I opened it, the world tilted. 6 children stood on my porch. They were lined up like they'd practiced it. The oldest girl, no more than 12, stood in front, her shoulders squared in a way that broke my heart immediately. Behind her were 5 smaller faces, some smudged with dirt, one with a nose running freely in the cold. They were all too thin, all too quiet. For a moment, none of us spoke. The wind moved through them like they were part of the scenery. "I'm sorry," the girl said finally. Her voice cracked on the apology. "We're told to come here." "Told by who?" I asked, though I already felt the answer forming in my chest like a bruise. She swallowed. "Our mom." The word hung between us, fragile and dangerous. I looked past them then, scanning the street for a car, a shadow, anything that would suggest this was a mistake. There was nothing. Just the same broken sidewalk, the same boarded-up house across the way, the same stray cat watching us like it knew more than it should. "How long ago?" I asked. "This morning," she said. "She said you were kind." I laughed then. A short, sharp sound that surprised even me. Kind was a word people used when they didn't know what else to say about you. Kind didn't pay rent. Kind didn't stretch groceries for a week. Kind didn't fix a roof leak with duct tape and prayer, but I stepped aside anyway. "Come in," I said. "All of you, it's cold." They filed past me, eyes wide, feet hesitant, like they were stepping into a place that might disappear if they moved too fast. The youngest, a little boy with curls too big for his head, reached back and grabbed the girl's hand. She squeezed his fingers hard like she was afraid he'd vanish. I closed the door behind them and leaned my back against it for just a second. My heart was beating too fast. My house felt smaller already. "What are your names?" I asked. "I'm Emily," the girl said. "This is Jacob, Lily, Marcus, Anna, and Noah." 6 names, 6 lives, 6 mouths. I nodded, committing them to memory like a prayer. "I'm Beatrice," I said. "You can call me Bee." They didn't smile, not yet. I made soup that day with what little I had. Potatoes and onion, the last of the carrots. I watered it down and added salt until it tasted like something. They ate quietly, like children who had learned that noise could be dangerous. I watched them over the rim of my own bowl, pretending not to count how many times they went back for seconds. After they finished, Emily helped me clear the table without being asked. That told me more than anything else could have. "Where's your father?" I asked gently, knowing I might regret the question. She didn't look up. "Gone," she said. "A long time." "And your mother?" My voice was softer than I felt. Emily paused, her hands tightened around a plate. "She said she couldn't do it anymore." The room went quiet except for the radio, which had switched to an old soul song. I turned it off. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed listening to 6 different breathing patterns scattered through my small house. 2 on the couch, 2 on the floor, one in my bed with me, Anna, who cried silently until exhaustion took her. Emily insisted on sleeping near the door. At 2 in the morning, I got up and sat at the table with my head in my hands. I did the math. The kind of math you can't avoid, my social security check. The rent, the utilities, food. I should have called someone, child services, a church, anyone official. Anyone with a clipboard and a solution. Instead, I made oatmeal at dawn. The days that followed blurred together like wet paint. School registration forms, second-hand clothes from the thrift store, a visit from a caseworker who looked at me like I was a temporary inconvenience. I signed papers with a pen that kept running out of ink. "You understand this isn't permanent," she said. I smiled. "Nothing ever is." The children settled into my life the way rain settles into cracks, quietly. Completely, they learned my routines. I learned theirs. Emily woke early to help. Jacob hated loud noises. Lily talked to herself when she thought no one was listening. Marcus refused to eat meat. Anna clung to me like I was made of air. Noah followed the sound of music wherever it went. Music, that was the first miracle. It started with my old radio, the one with the loose dial. Noah would sit cross-legged in front of it, head tilted, completely still. One afternoon, while a song played low and slow, he began to hum, soft at first, then stronger on key. I froze in the doorway. He looked up at me, startled. "Am I in trouble?" No, I said, my throat tight. No, baby, you're singing. He shrugged like it was nothing. Mom used to play music when we had lights. That night, after the children were asleep, I cried into a dish towel so they wouldn't hear me. We were poor. There was no other way to say it. The kind of poor that teaches you creativity. I learned to make meals out of almost nothing. Learned which bills could wait. Learned how to smile at school meetings while my stomach twisted with worry. There were moments, dark, shameful ones, when I wondered if I had done the wrong thing, when my body ached so badly I couldn't stand straight, when the house felt too loud, too full, too needy. And then something small would happen. Emily would bring home a perfect spelling test. Lily would braid my hair with careful fingers. Jacob would laugh, really laugh, at something Marcus said. Anna would fall asleep with her hand wrapped around mine. Noah would hum. The neighborhood noticed us before I noticed the neighborhood. Mrs. Turner from next door brought over a bag of groceries one afternoon, pretending she'd bought too much. The man from the corner store started slipping extra bread into my bag. And then there was Sam. He lived 3 houses down, in a place even smaller than mine. I'd seen him before, always carrying something long and black in a worn case. I assumed it was a tool, a fishing rod, something practical. One evening, as I was struggling with the garbage cans, he appeared at my side without a word and took the heavier one from my hands. You shouldn't lift that, he said gently. I've been lifting things longer than you've been alive, I replied. He smiled, unoffended. That may be true still. That was how it started. Small help. No questions, just presence. A week later, Noah followed him home. I panicked when I realized Noah was missing, my heart slamming against my ribs. I found him sitting on Sam's front steps, eyes shining. He plays music, Noah said breathlessly when he saw me. Real music. Sam stood behind him, holding the case open. Inside was a violin, old and polished like it had been loved properly. I'm sorry, Sam said quickly. He heard me practicing. I stared at the instrument, at the child beside it, at the possibility opening quietly between us. No, I said slowly, don't be sorry. That night, for the first time since Harold died, my house filled with live music. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't loud, but it was alive. The children gathered like moths. Noah sat so close he nearly touched the bow. Something shifted then, something I didn't yet have a name for. But I knew this much as I watched their faces soften in the glow of sound. Whatever future waited for us, it had already begun. And I was in it, whether I was ready or not. Music changed the shape of our evenings. After that first night, Sam started coming by twice a week. He never announced himself. He just knocked softly, the same way the children had that first day, and wait. He always asked my permission with his eyes before stepping inside, as if my house were something sacred instead of patched together with hope and duct tape. The violin case became a kind of promise. When the latch clicked open, the children went quiet in a way that felt different from fear. This was attention. This was wonder. I watched them as much as I watched him. Sam didn't play fancy pieces. He played songs that sounded like memory, slow, aching melodies that curled into the corners of the room and stayed there. Sometimes Noah hummed along, tentative at first, then braver. Sam noticed. He always noticed. You've got an ear, he told Noah one night. Noah looked at me, eyes wide, like he needed permission to believe it. It means you hear music the way it wants to be heard, Sam added. I felt something tighten in my chest. Pride, maybe, or fear. The kind that comes when you realize something beautiful might grow in a place that doesn't feel safe enough to hold it. As weeks passed, routines formed. School, dinner, homework at the table while I washed dishes. Music twice a week. The caseworker came again, asked more questions, scribbled more notes. She frowned at the crowded sleeping arrangements but didn't offer solutions. They seem stable, she said finally, like it surprised her. They are, I said, as long as they stay. She didn't promise anything, they never do. Winter crept in slowly, then all at once. The heat struggled, the windows breathed cold. I layered the children at night like I was tucking in fragile packages. I told myself I could handle it. I told myself a lot of things. The first real crack came in February. Jacob got sick, not just a cold. A fever that wouldn't break, a cough that sounded too deep for a 9-year-old chest. I sat by his side through the night, pressing cool cloths to his forehead, whispering nonsense prayers I hoped God would translate. By morning, he was worse. I didn't have a car. Sam drove us to the clinic without hesitation, Noah clutching his violin, less hands in the back seat like he was holding something invisible together. The doctor talked about antibiotics and rest and follow-ups. I nodded like I understood how I'd manage any of it. At the pharmacy, I counted bills with shaking fingers. I came up short. I've got it, Sam said quietly, already handing over his card. I can't, I started. You can, he said, for him. I hated the relief that flooded me, hated that pride had to step aside for love, because that was what it was, whether I liked it or not. Jacob recovered slowly. When his fever finally broke, Emily cried in the kitchen, shoulders shaking, trying not to be seen. I hugged her then, really hugged her, and felt how thin she was under my arms. You don't have to be the grown-up all the time, I told her. She nodded against my shoulder. Someone has to. Spring brought mud and possibility. The kids grew restless. Noah's humming turned into singing, louder now, more confident. Sam started bringing sheet music. He showed Noah how notes worked, how sound lived on a page before it ever reached the air. I watched from the doorway, afraid to interrupt something that felt bigger than me. One afternoon, Sam lingered after the children went outside. You ever think about what comes next? He asked. All the time, I said. For them, he clarified. I mean, especially him. I knew who he meant. I think about getting through the week, I said honestly. Anything past that feels like tempting fate, Sam nodded. There's a community center downtown. They offer music programs, scholarships sometimes. The word echoed, scholarship, like it belonged to another world. I wouldn't even know where to start, I said. I would, he replied. That scared me more than anything else he could have said, because wanting something is dangerous. Wanting something for a child who's already lost too much feels almost cruel. But Noah's eyes when he sang, those eyes knew what wanting was. We argued about it later, quietly, after the kids were asleep. I don't want him to get his hopes up, I whispered. They're already up, Sam said gently. You didn't put them there, music did. I didn't sleep much that night. I stared at the ceiling and listened to the house breathe. 6 children, 1 old woman, a future knocking softly, waiting to be let in. The letter came in May. It was thin, official. My hands shook opening it. Noah watched from the table, legs swinging, unaware of how much power was folded inside that envelope. He's accepted, I read out loud, my voice breaking on the word. Full program, financial assistance pending. Noah didn't understand at first. When it clicked, he laughed, a bright, startled sound that made Anna clap her hands. Emily smiled, proud in a way that told me she'd already started rearranging her dreams to make room for his. The assistance came through. Not all of it, but enough. Sam drove us downtown twice a week. Noah held his violin, Sam's old one now, gifted without ceremony, like it was a living thing. The first recital was small, folding chairs, nervous parents. I sat in the front row, my best sweater pressed and borrowed shoes pinching my toes. When Noah stepped onto the stage, the lights swallowed him whole for a second. Then he played. I cried the entire time. Not loud sobs, just tears sliding down my face, unstoppable. Because I could see it then, clear as anything I'd ever known. Love didn't just keep you alive. Sometimes it gave you a voice. But life doesn't let joy go untested. That summer, the caseworker returned with a supervisor. They talked about long-term plans, about foster placements, about what was reasonable for someone my age. I stood my ground even when my knees wanted to buckle. They're my family, I said. Legally, they're not, the supervisor replied. The words cut deeper than I expected. They gave me time, reviews, more paperwork, more waiting. At night, I lay awake counting breaths again, not out of fear this time, but out of determination. I had raised these children in every way that mattered. I would not lose them to a system that measured love in boxes checked. Sam helped. Mrs. Turner wrote letters. Teachers advocated. The community center director vouched for stability and progress. Still, nothing was guaranteed. The tension seeped into the house. The children felt it even when we pretended otherwise. Anna started wetting the bed again. Marcus withdrew. Emily watched every adult conversation like it was a negotiation for her life. One evening after the kids were asleep, I sat at the table with my head in my hands, exactly like that first night. I don't know if I can win this, I whispered. Sam sat across from me. You already have, he said. No matter what happens next. I looked up at him, really looked. At the lines around his eyes, at the steadiness of him. Don't say that, I said. It sounds like goodbye. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was low. Then let's make sure it's not. The hearing was scheduled for October. Until then, we lived suspended between hope and fear. We cooked, we practiced, we loved each other fiercely, like time was something we could outrun. On the morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully. The children stood in a line again, just like the first day, but this time they were holding my hands. Whatever happened next, we would face it together. And I walked into that courtroom knowing one thing with absolute certainty. I was no longer just surviving. I was fighting. The courtroom smelled like old paper and disinfectant, a scent that made my head ache before anyone spoke. The benches were hard, polished smooth by years of waiting bodies. I held Anna on my lap even though she was technically too big for it. She fit there anyway, like she'd always known the shape of me was meant for her. Emily sat straight beside me, her spine rigid with responsibility. Jacob leaned into Marcus, who pretended not to notice but didn't move away. Lily swung her feet slowly, eyes darting. Noah clutched his violin case with both hands, knuckles white. The judge looked tired. That gave me hope. They talked about numbers first. Ages, dates, evaluations. My income, my health, words like sustainability and capacity. I listened, nodded when appropriate, answered when spoken to. I felt myself shrinking into statistics that couldn't possibly contain what we were. Then they asked me to speak. I stood. My knees protested, but I stayed upright. I looked at the judge, then at the caseworker, then finally at the children. I didn't plan this, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I didn't ask for 6 children to knock on my door. But they did, and once they were inside, they became mine. The room was quiet, even the air felt still. I don't have much, I continued. I won't pretend otherwise, but I have fed them, I have taught them, I have kept them safe, I have loved them every single day without exception. If that isn't enough, then I don't know what is. The judge studied me for a long moment, then she looked at the children. Do any of you want to say something? She asked gently. Emily stood before I could stop her. Didn't look at me, she looked straight ahead. We want to stay, she said. This is our home. That was all, the judge nodded slowly. I will take this under advisement, she said. You'll be notified of my decision within 2 weeks. 2 weeks, an eternity. We walked out together, hands linked, not speaking until we reached the courthouse steps. Then Anna let out a breath so big it turned into a laugh, and that broke something open in all of us. Noah tugged on my sleeve. Did I do okay? He asked. You did perfect, I said. The waiting was worse than the hearing. Every knock on the door made my heart jump. Every phone call tightened my chest. I kept busy on purpose. Cleaned, cooked, mended clothes, helped with homework. Listened to Noah practice, the music steadying something inside me I didn't know how to name. Sam came by more often, though he didn't hover. He had a way of being there without making it feel like pressure. One evening, while the kids were outside chasing fireflies, he sat across from me at the table. You know, he said, no matter what the judge decides, I'm not going anywhere. I studied his face. I didn't ask you to. I know, he said, that's why I'm telling you. I smiled then, small but real. The letter arrived on a Thursday. I recognized the envelope immediately. Official, heavy. My hands shook so badly I had to sit down. The children hovered in the doorway silent. I opened it. I read it once, then again, then I pressed it to my chest and cried. They're letting us stay, I whispered. All of us? The room exploded. Anna screamed. Lily jumped up and down. Marcus let out a sound that might have been a laugh. Jacob wiped his eyes with his sleeve, embarrassed by the tears he didn't bother to stop. Emily covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking as years of fear finally loosened their grip. Noah stood very still. Then he walked over and hugged me with his whole body. Thank you, he said into my sweater like I'd personally moved the universe. That night we celebrated with pancakes for dinner because that's what I had. We laughed too loud. We stayed up too late. We existed without fear for the first time in a long while. Life didn't suddenly become easy. It never does. My body reminded me of my age daily. Bills still came. Food still needed stretching. But something fundamental had shifted. We belonged to each other now in every way that mattered. The years moved forward one careful step at a time. Emily graduated high school with honors. She chose a local college so she could stay close. Jacob grew tall and thoughtful, his laughter coming easier. Lily found her voice in writing. Marcus learned how to cook better than I ever could. Anna stopped clinging and started shining. Noah grew into his music. The violin became an extension of him. He practiced relentlessly, not out of pressure, but out of love. Scholarships came and went. Recitals turned into competitions. Applause became something he accepted with grace. I sat in the audience every time, my hands folded, my heart full to the point of ache. Sam stayed. He became part of us quietly, naturally. He fixed things, drove kids places, sat beside me in the evenings, listening to the radio hum. We never rushed to name what we were. We didn't need to. One autumn evening, years later, Noah played at a community fundraiser. The room was packed. When he finished, the applause went on longer than usual. I looked around and saw faces softened by sound. People moved, changed. That's when it hit me. Love doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it knocks softly, waits patiently, and grows roots before you even realize it's there. I was 70 when 6 children changed my life. I am older now, slower. My hands shake more often. But when I sit in my chair and close my eyes, I hear music drifting through my house. Laughter, footsteps, life. I was never just a grandmother. I was a beginning. And love, true love, never, ever abandoned us. Time has a way of sneaking up on you when you're busy living. One day you're counting pennies at the kitchen table, worrying about how to make soup stretch another night, and the next you're sitting in a crowded auditorium, hands folded in your lap, listening to your grandson tune his violin under stage lights that feel brighter than the sun ever was. I didn't notice my hair turning fully white. I didn't notice when my steps got slower, when the stairs began to feel steeper. What I noticed were moments, always moments. Like the first time Emily brought home someone she loved and stood in my kitchen wringing her hands like she was 12 again, asking, "Is it okay if he stays for dinner?" Like the day Jacob asked me how to tie a tie because he had an interview and didn't want to look like he didn't belong. Like Lily slipping her first published short story onto my nightstand without a word, letting the paper speak for her. Like Marcus calling me from his tiny apartment, proud and nervous, telling me he de-cooked a meal for friends and nobody got sick. Like Anna dancing barefoot in the living room, music blaring, completely unafraid of taking up space. And Noah, always Noah. Music carried him forward, but it never carried him away from us. Was my quiet fear for years that the thing that saved him would also take him somewhere I couldn't follow. But he came back every Sunday, every holiday, every time life gave him something worth sharing. He played for me most nights when my joints hurt too badly to sleep. Soft pieces, familiar ones. He learned which melodies eased my breathing, which ones pulled me gently toward rest. Tell me again, he'd say sometimes, setting the violin aside. About the day we came to your door, so I would. I would tell it slowly, carefully, like a story that needed to be honored. I would tell him how scared I was, how tired, how unprepared, and how none of that mattered once I saw their faces. You saved us, he'd say, and I'd correct him every time. No, I'd say, we saved each other. There came a winter when my body finally demanded more rest than I wanted to give it. A fall. A hospital room too white, too quiet, machines that hummed like they were impatient with me. The children, grown now, but still my children, took turns sitting by my bed. Emily read to me. Jacob argued with doctors. Lily brought notebooks and wrote while watching my chest rise and fall. Marcus made sure everyone ate. Anna slept curled in the chair, her head against my arm. Noah played softly in the corner when visiting hours allowed it. I watched them from that bed and felt something settle inside me. Peace. I had worried once about what would happen to them if I failed. About whether love was enough to protect 6 abandoned children in a world that could be so cruel. But looking at them then, strong, kind, alive, I understood something I hadn't before. Love doesn't promise safety. Love builds resilience. When I came home, the house felt different. Smaller, quieter, but never empty. Sam's chair was still by the window. The radio still hummed. Photos lined the walls now. Graduations, recitals, birthdays, proof. I spend my mornings in that same kitchen, though the paint has been redone and the table no longer wobbles. My hands still shake when it's cold. Some things don't change, but when I light the stove now, I smile, because I know exactly why my hands look the way they do. They held on. If this is my legacy, 6 lives shaped not by perfection but by presence, then it is enough. More than enough. There are mornings now when the house is quiet in a way it never used to be. Not the frightening quiet of those early days, when silence meant hunger or fear or waiting for the other shoe to drop. This is a gentler quiet, a earned quiet, the kind that comes after a life has been fully lived and nothing urgent is left unsaid. I wake before the sun most days. Old habits don't loosen easily. I sit by the window with my tea and watch the street come alive, the mail truck groaning to a stop, a jogger passing with steady breath, a neighbor unlocking her car with keys that jingle like bells. Ordinary sounds, miraculous ones. Sometimes I catch myself listening for children's footsteps before I remember they no longer live under this roof. That realization still stings, not sharply, more like a dull ache that reminds me I loved deeply enough to miss. Emily calls every morning without fail. Did you eat? She asks, even though she knows the answer. I'm 78, not helpless, I tell her. She laughs. Eat anyway. Jacob checks in every few days, always pretending he just happened to be nearby when he stops by with groceries. Lily sends me drafts of her writing, still nervous, still asking if the ending feels true. Marcus fixes things that aren't broken yet, as if staying busy keeps worry away. Anna visits whenever she feels like the world is too loud and she needs to remember who she is. And Noah visits with music. He doesn't announce himself, he never has. I'll just hear the violin begin somewhere in the house, a soft note testing the air, followed by another, until the room fills with sound like breath returning to a body. I sit very still when he plays. I don't want to disturb anything. One afternoon, he stopped mid-song and looked at me. What? I asked. He smiled. You're crying again. I always cry, I said. You know that. He set the violin down and came to sit at my feet, just like he did when he was small. He rested his head against my knee, and for a moment time folded in on itself. Do you regret it? He asked quietly, my heart tight. Regret what? That day, he said, opening the door. I didn't answer right away. I ran my fingers through his hair, thicker now, darker, but still familiar. I thought of the fear, the poverty. The nights I doubted myself so deeply it felt like betrayal. And I thought of love, all of it. No, I said finally. I regret every door I didn't open before that one. He nodded, as if that confirmed something he already knew. When people ask me now how I did it, how I raised 6 children at my age with so little, I tell them the truth. I didn't do it alone. I had neighbors who showed up quietly. A man with a violin who shared more than music. Children who met hardship with courage far beyond their years. And love, steady, imperfect, relentless love that refused to leave. That's the part people don't always understand. Love isn't dramatic most days, it's repetitive, it's soup again, it's paperwork, it's sitting in a courtroom holding a child who's too old to need your lap but needs it anyway. It's staying when leaving would be easier. I am tired now, in a good way. When my hands shake, I let them. When my body asks for rest, I listen. I have nothing left to prove. If this story ends soon, and I feel it will, gently, I am not afraid. Because I know what waits at the end, not silence. Music, the doctor says my heart is tired. He uses careful words, the kind meant to soften truth without hiding it. He tells me to rest more, to avoid stress, to listen to my body like it's been speaking clearly all along. I nod, I smile, I thank him. I've been listening to my body for years. I know the difference now between a bad day and a last season. I feel it in the way the mornings linger, in how sunlight through the window feels heavier, almost affectionate, like it's saying goodbye properly. I don't tell the children right away, not because I'm afraid, but because I want their visits to stay light a little longer. I want laughter without worry trailing behind it. I want Noah to play without watching my face for signs of fading. So I keep quiet and keep living. I bake when my hands allow it. I sit on the porch with Sam and argue about nothing. I write letters I may never send. I sort through old photographs, touching each one like it's a doorway. There's the picture from our first pancake dinner, syrup everywhere, Anna grinning with missing teeth. There's Emily in her graduation gown, eyes fierce and soft all at once. Jacob in his first suit. Lily holding her book like it might disappear if she let go. Marcus in a tiny kitchen, proud and exhausted. Noah on stage, lights behind him, violin tucked under his chin like it belongs there. I linger on that one the longest. The house seems to know. It creaks differently at night, settles more slowly. As if it too is aware we are reaching the end of something important and wants to remember every sound. One evening, Noah plays longer than usual. The melody is unfamiliar, slower, layered with something that feels like gratitude and grief holding hands. I don't interrupt, I don't move. I let the music do whatever it came here to do. When he finishes, the silence stretches. I wrote that, he says quietly. For who? I ask. He looks at me, for where I came from. I reach for his hand and he squeezes back hard enough to tell me he knows. He has always known. That night after he leaves, I tell Sam, we sit at the table where so much life has happened, where fear once lived, where hope learned how to stay. I think I'm close, I say. He doesn't ask to what, he just nods. I know, he says. We sit there for a long time, hands folded near each other but not touching, like we're respecting the weight of the moment. When he finally reaches for me, it's gentle, reverent. You did good, he says, so simple, so complete. The next morning I make the calls. Emily cries first, then apologizes for crying, then asks practical questions. Jacob goes quiet. Lily listens more than she speaks. Marcus swears softly and then asks what I need. Anna comes immediately. Noah arrives last, breathless, like he ran the whole way. We gather in the living room, not in a hospital, not around a bed, around each other. I'm not leaving yet, I tell them. But I wanted you to know so we can do this the right way. What's the right way? Anna asks, her voice small. Together, I say. The days that follow are full in the way only endings can be. We eat old favorites. We tell stories we've told 100 times and still laugh like they're new. Emily cooks while I supervise from a chair. Jacob fixes a loose step I stopped noticing years ago. Lily reads aloud. Marcus brings friends who feel like family. Anna dances in the kitchen. Noah plays every night. Sometimes I get tired halfway through a sentence. Sometimes my chest tightens and I have to close my eyes and breathe slowly until the world steadies again. No one panics. They let me lead. One afternoon, when the house is quiet, I ask Noah to bring his violin. I want to hear it close, I say, just for me. He kneels beside my chair and plays softly, so softly it feels like the sound is happening inside my bones. I close my eyes and let it carry me, not away, but inward to every moment that made me who I am. When he finishes, I rest my hand on his cheek. Promise me something, I say. Anything. Don't ever believe you were abandoned, I say. You were redirected. His face crumples. He nods. I promise, he whispers. That night after everyone leaves, I sleep deeper than I have in years. I dream of a door. I am younger in the dream. My hands don't shake. I open the door and see 6 children standing there just as they were. I step aside. They enter. The house fills with light. When I wake, the morning is pale and quiet. Sam is there. He must have come early. He sits beside me, holding my hand like it belongs there. It's okay, I tell him, because it is. The children come soon after, all of them. The room fills with breath and warmth and familiar voices. I look at each face carefully, memorizing what time has shaped them into. I want to carry them with me. I love you, I say, every version of you, every day we had. Emily leans down and presses her forehead to mine. We'll be okay, she says, not as reassurance, but as truth. I know, I tell her. Noah lifts the violin one last time. He plays the first song I ever heard him hum. Simple, honest, whole. As the sound rises, something loosens inside me. There is no fear, only gratitude. If this is the end of my story, then it is a good one, a true one. I was a woman with little money, a tired body, and a door I chose to open. And love, real love, walked in and stayed. That is how families are built. That is how lives are saved. That is how I will be remembered. Not as a grandmother who survived hardship, but as a beginning.